But so my company's Regavi, and so I'm just gonna start with a little bit of background here. So the company is basically myself and my co-founder, Jack Crawford. We're both master's students at WashU. We've been working on it for about a year and a half now. And so the kind of origin story was basically we just had terrible contacts app experiences. And so when we originally conceptualized what Regavi was, it was just basically, all right, what do we need to do to build a better contacts app? And a better contacts app was basically going to be a personal CRM. And so kind of the way that we got together was we joined a student group around the same time and just had a lot of problems just even navigating, connecting with everyone within that student group. And kind of since then, the idea and the concept has really evolved a great deal. So kind of where that name comes from, Regavi is the idea of regain visibility. It's a nice portmanteau of those two words. And what that means is it's this twofold concept where it's this idea of putting people back at the center of relationships and information. And what it is as a technology is it's a way to, didn't want to pop up, a way to selectively share information. So that means that you have exact control over the information that everyone has on you. So there's this whole concept of deep fakes now, and this is kind of where one of our big problems comes in, because our investor and our consumer pitches are very different. No? Alright, that does not want to play with me. Okay, well, we'll just ignore PowerPoint, because PowerPoint never wants to work for anyone. But that was basically a video of Jordan Peele imitating Obama. And so there's this whole concept of deepfakes today, where basically there's complete audio and video manipulation ability in kind of the increasing software with AI capabilities. And so you can manipulate anyone to say or do anything in any given video, in any given audio file. So there is this whole kind of concept of this growing need for fraud prevention, because in very short time, even just what we dealt with in the last election, there's this whole concept of fake news, and now there's going to be just a great rise in impersonation. So breaking it back down to the short term and the long term for Regavi, the short term is we're personal CRM, we're going to help you find ways to better your relationships. But in the long term, we really want to take this role of being a digital driver's license. And so what a driver's license was originally just a source of verifying one piece of certification, right? So a driver's license was just, okay, you have legally met the requirements to drive a car. And what it's become today is it's become your source of ID. And so that means that, okay, this is anytime I need to check somebody's identity, anytime I need to check somebody's age to get to a bar, all these different things we need to get through TSA lines. It's this unique piece of information that has been expanded to kind of represent a much bigger concept. So, how Regavi fits into kind of that larger tech landscape, we have these kind of big three of the 5 largest companies on the planet right now. Facebook, Amazon, and Google, all basically dealing with 3 different types of major information, and how the gap that exists right now is there is no bank of personal information. And so how that kind of conceptualizes out is that we kind of have this opportunity to leap into an area where no one else is going, but in order to get there to become this whole bank of personal information, we have to kind of establish a lot of credibility to build up the brand, just basically build up that brand equity in order to get people to be willing to share any more information with us. And so the whole thing here is Facebook and all these other platforms that are social media, anything that has any sort of reflectional relationship with controlling information that people produce, there's all these needs to moderate and police and just kind of control and influence. And so by just being a source of your personal information, not that you're trying to publicly promote, not that you're trying to gain any sort of traction with, it's just literally a bank of your information, we have that whole opportunity to not have to be moderators, and that's pretty powerful. So this is just a basic outline of kind of all the different pieces of information that we need to collect on somebody in order to truly have an identity, an accurate identity verification in kind of this digital age. So we need to know who they know, how they know them, the things they're involved in, their medical history, where they reside and how they travel, their financial profile, the events they attend, and we need to have that physical recognition for the fingerprint or facial recognition software that's already built into most of your modern smartphones. So, I'm going to just quickly run through kind of where the MVP is today and kind of, this is still very conceptual right now, probably not making a lot of sense, but so, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. But so basically, this is just the core MVP features today, where we've just built out this better context app. But we have to, what it really is for us is it's just a stepping stone and the first building block of how we build up this entire infrastructure of having a bank of everyone's personal information in a way that no one else has collected, so that when you're sending an email, when you're uploading information, when you're sharing and communicating anything about yourself, there's this entire infrastructure to support the fact that that is who you are, and you are who you say you are. And so, kind of what we'll eventually get into is this whole concept of the Regavi ID. And so this is our driver's license, the digital age's driver's license, right? And so kind of how that conceptualizes out is just, we have all this information, we have a way to fact check that all this is accurate and related to you based on the device you're accessing, all the other information you've collected, and then once we have all of that, we can attach this as a kind of deep linked interface to anything that you're communicating with anyone else, just to prove that you are who you say you are. And so now I'll take questions, because that was really rough, so we'll go for this.
Let me grab the microphone. Hold on. So please wait for the microphone.
Great presentation. So have you been looking into cryptocurrency and what they're doing with social identity? Basically, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, but you didn't mention. It didn't seem like you mentioned that.
Yeah, so it's kind of trying to very rough run through this. Part of the reason I just wanted to come out today was we kind of pivoted into this bigger concept. I still have no practice pitching it at all. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's basically what you're talking about is the social identity.
Yeah, it's exactly the social identity, just kind of a very different landscape from traditional social media, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what is the why for me, the consumer? I get the idea of why this is really valuable as a digital license, kind of idea, but for me, why is it worth me putting in all of my personal information, which is scary?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go through kind of any one of the different points here, and so we'll take it back to the MVP one, and so this is the product that we'll have live on the App Store and on the Google Play within the next week or two, and so these are the 4 key functions that we're offering. It's this one tag, it's this unified piece of information for kind of all of your different accounts and your different digital identities. So if you share that one piece of information, you share all of the pieces of information you choose to share with any person. And so we have this also communicated through a DigiCard or a QR code that we've enabled within our app. And then kind of all of that kind of comes together with these 2 concepts of smart contacts and lists, where lists are this whole control over who has what. And so that's kind of not just the secure information, that's the selectively shared information. So whether you view someone as a colleague, a friend, an acquaintance, anything else within one of those different categories, you choose, okay, I want to share my Facebook and Instagram with my boss, but with my friends, but not with my boss. And whereas I want my LinkedIn to kind of be publicly available to anyone I'm connected to in any sphere, because of just kind of the different natures of those relationships. And then kind of the other side of that is, because it is all cloud computed, done from a cloud infrastructure, it's all smart. So anytime any of that information changes, you move, you get a new phone number, your job title changes, all of that repopulates in everybody's contacts apps natively.
Okay. Thank you. More questions?
First off, I want to say that awesome creating something in college. Literally, my company, same thing. So, I was going to ask, so about the healthcare aspect. Because I know it's like a card. Are you guys doing something with trying to do something with insurance there? Or?
Yeah. So kind of the whole thing with healthcare is it's just all of your medical records. So it's just a basic form fill out. So rather than having to fill out those same forms over and over, and when you go to different doctors' offices, kind of verify that insurance, hand over those cards, have those 10 or so different insurance cards on you all the time, just an instant transmission of all of your medical history based on what a different doctor's office requests. And so, yeah.
I'm just gonna say it just kind of sounds like that could be like your MVP of like the whole thing could be right there and make a lot of money on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of each of these different ones wrong way on this slide are kind of entirely different functionalities that are all kind of built out using the same infrastructure. So basically what we view it as is it's just a technology for selectively sharing information securely. So that's kind of the big tagline there. So we give you exact control over the information you want to share with any given person based on any different type of relationship. And all of these are different angles that you're able to approach with that different information that you store. And so kind of I think the root of your question is why contacts first? And basically what we came up with was that was a lot easier of a market for us to penetrate as college students because the whole concept of the list is, okay, who's straddling a personal and a professional life more so than college students? And being still college students ourselves, we're like, okay, that's the market we have a lot easier access to than medical professionals, for example. Like I know maybe 5 doctors just because I've been to 5 doctors in my life, whereas I know thousands of college students. And so kind of when we were just trying to get that early traction, we really thought that was kind of an easier way to go out and just get those first users.
All right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, actually, introductions are really, really good at getting those sales out there. So, I mean, like, you know, you think that it might be easy to do that, but I'm like, look, if you have one good introduction into somebody that's a champion in the medical industry, then that could be a lot more than, you know, trying to get into the contact business, because there's a lot of people that do, like, ID cards, apps, and different things like that. Like, I was just at a bar in Collinsville, and, like a guy came around and was like, oh, look, this is new future. And like, it happens all the time now. People have an idea, but what I'm talking about with the medical field, like, I've never seen that. And I'm saying like that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, and so kind of the other side of why we chose contact information first too is because we think that people are generally a lot more willing to share out contact information. So it's something that they're much less attached to rather than their whole medical history, right? And so you have a bunch of kind of big credibility questions, anything from Facebook to Equifax. All these companies have had these data scandals where a lot of brands have really lost a lot of credibility. And so kind of, if we come out of nowhere, this unknown brand, Regavi, wow, you're asking for the whole medical history? Like, it's kind of like a very in-your-face type thing, whereas if you go for contact information, that's something people are much more willing to share in general. We thought that that was an easier kind of in to eventually build towards that information that people care about a lot more.
Also representation. The question that I have is more of if there are, as you launch, there will probably be others who might try to launch off similar services as yours. And because it's about contact info, it's about personal information, and people might go down the road whereby they don't feel comfortable sharing with different sources. Like if there is a Regavi and there's another contact X whatever company. What makes you so, what will be yours, the unique value that you want to give people so that they would want to stick with you rather than trying to share information through other sources as well?
So I think kind of our big differentiating factor, it's that huge buzzword right now, but we are built on blockchain. So kind of unlike a lot of other companies coming in, we kind of have that control over your information where you have that kind of inalterable record to know exactly who, how, and when you've connected with someone. And kind of, that's not a great differentiating factor at start, but we think that is establishing a bit of a switching cost where you have this whole infrastructure supporting kind of staying on one platform rather than moving somewhere else.
Sorry, did I miss that? What you mentioned about the you're running a blockchain?
I did not mention it in the presentation.
Plug it in there just
Yeah, so because like that's your space, and so I'm part of a forum, a group. Basically, it's called Project PAI. It's a Chinese company, and they're doing social identity through blockchain. And so basically, what you're doing is building basically that currency. So I would say first understand your space that you're in, and then understand that like there's very dedicated communities that wants to be a part of like having like avatars where they're making financial decisions based upon their social identity. there's like a very dedicated community out there worldwide, and there's only a few players in that space. So it's a great opportunity for you to play in that. But definitely do a lot more research on that. And because like they're saying, like it's hard for other people to give you their information. You don't need all that. Find that dedicated community where they understand where social identity and blockchain is going, and you can play in that space.
Thank you.
This is so much information about an individual. I'm really uncomfortable with this altogether because, why should we trust you when we can't trust Equifax not to get hacked? And once you've given information to somebody, can you then block them later on because something happened? This is a huge security for me. I don't want to see my insurance company talking to the TSA. I mean, that kind of stuff. So why should I trust you?
Yeah, so kind of, so one, you have full control, you can take anything back. So whether you're connected to an individual, medical office, or anything else, you simply choose to disconnect, and it instantly repos all the information back from that firm. So this, admittedly, if they've screenshot it or saved it somewhere else, this doesn't do anything, but what we've seen in our early research is that very rarely do people do anything like that. So unless there's kind of like an active lawsuit or something kind of coming along, you're not generally going to kind of lose information that you've shared with stuff that you've shared previously isn't just going to float out there because no one's taken the time to kind of save it outside of the platform on which you're connected with them. And then so kind of the secondary consideration there, so there's this difference between called local storage and cloud storage, and we build everything. So this is beyond my technical skill set, so I'm going to try to walk through this. But basically, we have our encryption is locally. So basically, it's the difference between storing something in the device where it can only be accessed from that device, and storing something like in the cloud so that you can access it across devices. And basically, our encryption is set up where you can't access any information unless you're already on a registered device. So it's localized encryption with cloud stored information, because unless you're on a device that's already recognized, you can't actually decode the information into any logical form.
So if someone steals your cell phone, you're screwed.
Only if they can get into your cell phone.
No, I'm saying you can't pull up a new cell phone that hasn't been recognized before and then access your previous information.
So you can through kind of the additional verification steps, and so it's kind of like if you want to add a new device, you'll be able to either add it from the device you already have linked to the account. So like, so iOS and Apple's doing this really well now. When you're setting up a new iPhone, they have a I don't even know what to call it. It's like their version of a QR code. It's like a bunch of blue dots when you're setting up a new iPhone, where you can scan one thing to prove that it's like linked to your account, and it'll automatically kind of dupe that information over to the new one. And so kind of if you lose access to one device, though, there's a whole additional verification process.
So for me, I was with you until you said medical. I come from the medical world, and that is just what made me go. It's medical data is under so much regulatory scrutiny. I mean, as a small company, the ability for you to be able to get around, being able to deal with HIPAA, but on top of that, being able to, you're probably going to have to go under, I'm not exactly sure, but medical apps have to go under FDA scrutiny in something or another. I mean, what you're doing is essentially you're bringing in an electronic health record EHR component, right? There are ways to bring EHR components into things without actually owning the data. So you do an API from like Epic and stuff like that, which might be something you want to look into. But for me, like if I were an investor sitting here, I would be with you until you say medical, because that world is very hard. So it's a whole nother level. And that was really just more a comment than anything else.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable. That's kind of the third reason to not go into medical first.
Yeah.
I was looking at your privacy policy, and it's not very clear. It's like, okay, we could say we don't share anything with anybody, but I see at the very top it says collects by itself or through third parties. I don't see any names of third parties. I don't see the use of collected data is a long, one big paragraph full of stuff I don't understand necessarily. Well, I haven't taken the time, but the idea of changing the privacy policy without, you say you'll notify people, but you won't get a buy-in. You have to go, people have to go to the privacy policy to find out what the changes are. So there are things that, about the privacy that's very important, I think, to your platform. And it might be good to really simplify that and make it straightforward.
I would say, so I understand where you're trying to go with this. One thing I would say is look at creating basically a social intelligence avatar. Basically, it's like you're able to sign smart contracts where you don't have to go through all this paperwork. It's super easy. There's different things that this has great use. So basically you're assigning a social identity and giving permission as actual person to an online digital avatar. You give them the same rights to be able to sign a contract or be able to do different things on your behalf. That's the actual function of basically what you're trying to build. So you don't have to collect people's
So I'm not sure. I'm not quite following the avatar comment.
So social, that's what social identity blockchain is. So it basically is you as an actual person, you are giving, you're giving this blockchain identity permission to make transactions and make different things on your behalf. So almost like in the App Store, that's basically what wallets are. They're just basically a permission to purchase, right? So I think that's what you need to look at is kind of changing this around. It's not like collecting a bunch of information from people and storing it somewhere. That's not what social identity blockchain is. All it is just having a digital avatar where that person has that's electric permission to make transactions and different things.
You was there first.
First, great presentation. And last night I looked at your website, and it seems like the focus of the website is solely, or almost solely, on the contact part, which to me makes a lot of sense. Go brand recognition, do all those things, and get out with the lowest hanging fruit. And then I think your competitive advantage grows into that digital security around blockchain and things like that. So two questions. One, in the latter, will you have a familial connection? When you mentioned filling out forms and things like that, I have a first grader.
So can you speak up a bit there?
Yeah, will you have familial relationships in there for kids and things like that? I fill out 1 million forms for my first grader, and so I think that's a great way for users to gain value from the tool. The other question I had was, how are you going to push out the contact part? Because I'm picturing, once you mentioned college, Facebook and the movie and going to, so how are you gonna kind of, what's your initial plan for getting it out there?
Yeah, sorry, can you clarify the first question? It was just is there a sort of family setup or?
Yeah, basically that's what I was just asking is down the road as you're using it as identity management, I have a 6-year-old, and so is there a relationship that you can put in there? You choose what you share, but as her custodial parent, I have ownership of her information too. Just curious as far as a feature, if that was something that you could do.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting point, and honestly not something we thought about. I think kind of the reason we haven't bridged anything with kids is just because we generally don't view kids as having the smart devices to have accounts in general, although all the studies are suggesting that the kids are getting younger and younger when they do have smart devices, so that is definitely something we'll need to look into. I think that's a really good point, thank you. And then kind of the second question was just how is basically the launch marketing strategy? Yeah, and so kind of it's kind of your typical like college marketing strategy is the like front hand, it's the brand ambassadors, it's the referral system, it's the engaging the localized social media influencers is kind of the generic answer, and then kind of what we view as more of our unique angle is we have a bunch of connections based on kind of previous work experience to a number of different bands, and so we're contracting with a bunch of different artists right now to actually produce custom songs for us to kind of build up an audience around, okay, we're gonna have songs that tell what we call connection stories, and so this is kind of the origin and the history of a relationship between any two different people, and basically we're going to have them, we have enough kind of brand equity with them, and we're kind of working on different ways of making payment to them, but we're doing this whole thing where they create custom songs for us, and they kind of promote Regavi within the context of those songs.
Last question.
All right. So I'm gonna say that. I mean, you're the same thing as I was. Like college kids, you know, everybody in the company was underneath 25. We're going a bunch of different directions, but we all got all this energy, got all this like talent, like getting things done. But I would say do an out 10, get a mentor, and find out what's the first thing you can do to get out. While you're mentioning, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do that, and you'd be stuck on a bunch of different ways, staying up 3 days straight trying to get small stuff done. But if you can get one thing out there, you can get one mentor in there to focus you on what you need to do and cut 25 things out that you're trying to do and just say, you don't gotta do that right. You can do that, but you're not gonna do that right now. What you're doing is gonna do this. Because that's the same thing we struggle with when we got a mentor. Well, we got like 4 mentors, but it's one of those things that will put you in the right direction, and that you'll be so much more focused, and you'll feel so much better, and you will see so much more progress happen quicker in where you want to go in a year compared to you doing 25 things at once, and then you got about 5% of what you want to get to in a year.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Do I have time to ask a question or two of the audience?
You certainly can.
So kind of I think we kind of hit on one of the big reasons why I wanted to come out here today, which was just kind of talking about how the consumer and the investor pitch is very different conceptually. There we go. Is very different conceptually, and so a lot of really great comments on that. But kind of the other reason that I really wanted to kind of get input from the community was we have even just looking at the MVP, we have this kind of big problem where we have a team of 3 developers, and they're all working quite hard any given week, but they're still not meeting their deadlines. And so part of the way that structure has kind of set up is because they were just working so hard to try to push things out as quickly as possible, they're not taking the time to document or kind of refactor any of their code. And so kind of trying to lighten their load by adding another developer right now is almost impossible, where it's either like, okay, do we just kind of move forward for a month and kind of just like keep holding out and not have our code documented, not be able to add any other developers, or do we kind of just pause all active development to take the time to document everything out, and kind of just any general advice on integrating more developers into kind of the established type of dev team would be very appreciated.
I think you could come by afterwards and talk to him about that. That's a pretty in-depth conversation. All right, well, we got to wrap this thing up until. So thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks a lot, Regavi.